the CFA franc depreciates against the dollar in the wake of the euro. Here are the countries most and least impacted. Linked by a fixed parity to the euro, the CFA franc, the currency of 14 West and Central African countries, depreciated sharply against the dollar in the wake of the appreciation of the greenback against the euro, a situation that has divergent repercussions on the countries of the region. The euro, the single European currency, falls to equal the US dollar for the first time in 20 years in July 2022. The CFA franc, common currency of the 8 countries of the West African Economic and Monetary Union and of the countries of the Economic and Monetary Community of Central Africa, have a fixed exchange rate to the euro. 1 euro converts to 655.957 CFA francs. It thus moves up or down against the US dollar in correlation to the euro. This situation can partly be explained by the shocks linked to the Russia-Ukraine war, which has weakened the European economies because of the dependence on Russian gas and oil imports. As a consequence, the CFA franc has continued to depreciate against the dollar since the beginning of the year, and more particularly since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Between December 31, 2021 and July 11, 2022, the exchange rate of the CFA franc against the dollar fell from 579.50 FCFA for $1 to 645.95 FCFA for the same dollar, a depreciation of 11.46%. This is the lowest level of the West African currency against the dollar for more than 20 years. Over 1 year, the CFA franc depreciated by 13.2%, a consequence of the economic situations and American and European monetary policies, in which the 14 countries of the CFA regions are only mere spectators, nevertheless suffering the consequences, positive or negative. As such, the appreciation of the US dollar against the CFA franc has divergent impacts depending on the country. First, for oil and gas exporting countries, including Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, Chad, Niger, Cameroon and Congo, this rise in the US dollar, which occurs in a context of soaring oil prices, is a boon. At $104 a barrel of North Sea Brent, a strong dollar is a boon for economies dependent on hydrocarbons for export earnings and fiscal resources. Similarly, countries exporting minerals, gold in particular, and countries exporting agricultural products, such as cocoa, cashew nuts, cotton and peanuts, which are invoiced in dollars, will also benefit from the appreciation of the US dollar. This will make their products more competitive in the international market. This should particularly benefit Côte d'Ivoire, a major exporter of agricultural products such as cocoa, coffee, cashew nuts and bananas, but also, to a lesser extent, Mali, Burkina Faso and Benin, major producers of cotton. The depreciation of the CFA franc will also make the region more attractive to American investors and tourists who benefit from a much stronger dollar. But the appreciation of the dollar against the CFA franc does not only have positive impacts. Firstly, the countries of this region being mainly major importers of food products, the surge in the prices of agricultural products, in particular wheat, corn, oilseeds and dairy products, will inevitably result in a significant increase in import bills under the combined effect of the rise in prices on the world market, the increase in world freight costs, and the appreciation of the dollar against the franc CFA. These increases will also impact the production costs of African companies. As a result, the depreciation of the CFA franc will make the import bill invoiced in dollars much higher, and accentuate inflation in the 2 CFA zones of Africa while further widening trade deficits. And it is the countries that do not have hydrocarbons and agricultural products to export that will be most affected by this situation. In addition, this significant depreciation of the CFA franc against the dollar will result in an increase in the cost of servicing debt denominated in dollars for the countries of the region. It will be necessary to mobilize more CFA francs to repay the debt. In short, the current account balances of countries in the region will be negatively impacted, except for those of oil exporting countries such as Congo, Gabon and Equatorial Guinea, etc., or agricultural products exporting countries such as Côte d'Ivoire. Finally, travel to the United States will become much more expensive for African travelers, who will have to cope with soaring air ticket prices due to the impact of the cost of kerosene, billed in dollars, and the depreciation of the CFA franc against the dollar, which means that compared to a year ago, African travelers to the United States, all other things being equal, will now have to have more CFA francs to acquire the same amount of dollars. It should be noted that the hope of a slowdown in the depreciation of the CFA franc against the dollar rests on the decision of the European Central Bank whether or not to raise its key rate to cope with inflation without affect the region's growth. This means that the 14 countries of the 2 CFA zones are helpless in the face of the soaring dollar against their single currency.